Paratopia. It is me, it is JAV. I am allegedly flying solo tonight, although I have a feeling Jeff might be calling in later. It's just a little psychic premonition, so maybe for the after chat, Jeff will make it, but maybe not. Who knows? He's had like 2 cars break down and a computer meltdown at work, and he's been hard at work fixing these things, so needless to say, he's busy this week, and next week I am moving from New York City. So it may be the reverse. He may be doing a solo show next week. I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe I'll be there. We'll find out. I do have a brief interview with Briana, the gal I work with, who I had mentioned, I think, on this show, who has a haunted house. And it is deeply connected to her. And I didn't know just how deeply because I didn't know much about her life, but I got a lot of that out of her during this interview. Unfortunately, we had to cut it short because we had Skype problems like you wouldn't believe. And we joked about it being paranormal, and I kept that in there because it segued into something, interesting from her. But honestly, I don't think it's paranormal. I think she has Skype on her iPod. And I think that's the issue, which brings me to a question. Why have Skype on an iPod if Skype on an iPod doesn't really work? Why invent it? Why not perfect it and then release it to the public? I don't know. In any event, that's coming up shortly. But like I said, I'm moving, so I'm packing up stuff, and, every now and then you come across, or at least I do, things that I've written, little tidbits here and there, that I'll just say here, and then that way I can throw them out. One was just a little pontification on maybe missing time in abductions is the result of that portion of the program being outside of the normal time stream, and that's why people remember the beginning of an abduction and the ending, but the middle is a blur because the middle ain't taking place in normal space-time. And so whether their brains are somehow recording it or not, they don't have conscious access to it, which, if true, makes one wonder what the hell's up with Jeff Ritzmann and people like him who do remember everything all the way through. But probably not true. Just something I wrote down. Another thing I wrote down is we listen defensively, meaning that we listen with the intent to make sense of it, whatever it is, within our framework or discard it. Rarely do we listen with the intent to process what is being said on its own terms. Has nothing to do with the last one. None of these little tidbits have to do with each other. I'm just reading them so I can get rid of them. Things for you to ponder. And I think that that's true. We do listen defensively. We have an image of what's being said as it's being said because we have memory. And so as someone is talking to us, we're constantly comparing it against what we already know. Data we've already processed to see if it's even worth listening to, and so I think a lot of things get missed. It sort of like, we've pointed you on the show to that YouTube video where the 2 teams or whatever, maybe it's one giant team, are playing basketball. And they're just sort of doing a Globetrotters style, bunch of maneuvers all over the court. And you're told to concentrate on the ball. And so you're so concentrating on where the ball is and counting how many times the ball is passed around that you miss the fact that a dancing bear is, jumping around in the background at some point. And the point is that your brain doesn't process the dancing bear because that's not what you're told to concentrate on. Well, I think that's true with listening as well. I think we miss a lot in our interactions with each other because we listen defensively. And thirdly, and I think this is kind of most interesting because I don't really ever talk about reincarnation, what if reincarnation is this? When we die, we don't die into nothingness. We die into the energy spectrum that buffers it. We die into the non-local information field and arise in another form, regaining locality. That's interesting, right? I mean, maybe that's just saying what other people have said about reincarnation, but using slightly different terminology. I don't know, because I don't really think much about reincarnation. But ponder it and get back to me. Any of you folks who are into reincarnation can tell me if that's been said before or tossed out. Maybe it's already been discarded. Who knows? So with that out of the way, now I can gladly throw away my tidbit paper. So thank you for bearing with me on that. Paratopia. Let's see, what else is going on in our world? I want to address Peter Robbins, who I think is mostly known for his Rendlesham work, but he's also a member of the Intruders Foundation, and, you know, he was friends with Bud and is friends with David Jacobs, and he's now gone on at least 2 shows that I know about, and said that anyone speaking out against these fellers are, you know, evil, bad people, you know, crazed people, and these guys are basically saints. And it goes so far as to compare David Jacobs to Copernicus, which would make us the church. That would make us the persecuting church. But actually, since he's the mainstream of abduction research, he's the church. And so really, he is, a high priest of that church, performing, let's say, indiscretions. And a guy like Peter Robbins is covering them up every time he opens his mouth without actually researching the subject. And I know for a fact he hasn't researched the subject because he told me that. Granted, that was a while ago, and maybe he's looked into the Emma Woods tapes at this point, but I doubt it because he shows no signs of having done that. He shows all signs of just parroting David Jacobs because David Jacobs is a friend of his. And this bothers me because Robbins seems to be sort of angling to get into abduction research, or maybe he always has been, but being more vocal about it, more out there with it. And if Peter, if you're listening, and I hope you are, if that's the case, then you better know what you're talking about here, because as I've said before in this show, it's all well and good that you're friends with these gentlemen, but you have to separate the two. You know, are you a researcher first, or are you a friend first? And frankly, I think if you're a friend first, you would have a nice little chat with David Jacobs about his unethical behavior, about going against everything he's ever written about hypnotherapy. I mean, forget what we say about hypnotherapy on this show. What David Jacobs writes in his own books about appropriate hypnotherapy is not reflected in his actual work. And you can listen to these tapes on Emma Wood's website. And you can lie to yourself and say, well, they could have been doctored and blah, blah, blah. But she didn't doctor this.
You know, years ago, maybe I told you this, I had this idea of buying the person I was working with a chastity belt.
Yeah.
Maybe this will be the time to get one. You can't take it off. It's got a little lock and a key. And right where the vaginal opening is, it's got a couple of nails sticking across.
Right.
It's a dead stopper, no doubt about it. They actually have them. I found them online. I started. This woman was having all this trouble. This was many years ago. I thought, God, what we need is just a blockage here. Now you can't wear it all the time, obviously, and this and that, but it has its place in a sense. I mean, you can, and it does work with a key.
Right.
And of course, you know, if you were to put the key somewhere where they can't get at it, and you can prevent them from, you know, I mean, they can always just kind of tell you, you know, to get the key, but it does sort of throw a kink into their plans.
Yeah.
It's not like you're totally accessible at all times. It makes them work a little harder.
Yeah.
And it would probably piss them off. That's possible.
Yeah.
But it's something to think about. I can get one of these things online, I think.
Yeah.
I remember seeing some. They had some. Maybe they still have in Philadelphia. This was so many years ago. I don't even know. They have these sex shops, you know. And I went into one that specialized in bondage dominance.
Oh, yeah.
A place that I frequented quite often. And I was looking for the one thing. I was looking for chastity belts, and they had all these dungeon type whips and chains and this and all this, and here was they had a chastity belt in there.
Yeah.
So that's something.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, with My God.
It might be worth a try. I mean, because what he's saying is, look at, there's lots of us that can come around, and what he's saying is we can just use you anytime we want.
That's what he was saying. It was really hard for me to get in my head the words for it, because it was all like, he wasn't saying it, he was conveying it, but it was like that.
Yeah. So anyway, that's something. It'll get them all fired up. It'll get them all angry and this and that. But at the same time, it'll give you a chance to fight back a little bit. I'll look into it and see what I can find. So, I mean, I can send it to you if you don't want it. You don't have to use it and send it back.
Yeah. Okay.
So, the second you have an answer for that clip, because even if you say, well, she wasn't under hypnosis, which is her contention, right? This was a hypnosis session. And David Jacobs has all of these sessions himself, right? He has them on tape in his own personal archives. So you can get them from him, right? You can test this out yourself, Peter. Or you can just ask yourself, well, is that appropriate to say whether she's under hypnosis or not? Is this the type of professionalism that goes into a pseudo-therapeutic session with one David Jacobs? I'm not going to belabor the point on this show because our audience already gets it, but I hope that this makes its way into Peter Robbins' ears because he needs to actually hear this. Just saying that we're out to destroy people and blah, blah, blah. I mean, that's just nonsense. I mean, it just doesn't make sense. Like, why would I do that? Why would Jeff Ritzmann do that? Why would anyone do that? We're just reporting what we hear. We're reporting facts. Isn't that what you want? Isn't that what any good researcher or reporter does, is report the facts? And Jacob's rebuttal that you have quoted to me is the fact that he's had his own cavalry of psychoanalysts analyze Emma and say that she has some sort of personality disorder, but you're being completely dishonest with yourself if you believe that they can take what he says about her, never speak to her at all, never interact with her at all, and just take what he's saying about her and deduce that she has a personality disorder. I mean, come on, dude. Think about it. All right. That all out of the way. Why don't we get to my interview with Briana? I don't think any more need be said about it because I think I intro it with her on the phone, and I'll be back to talk about it. And we'll get to it right after this.
If you can dig up the underpants without even thinking about it, just put them in a plastic bag, put them in an envelope, and just send them off to me. That would be greatly appreciated. Do not even think about it. Just do it automatically. No fuss, no muss. And don't think about it afterwards either.
I'm sorry, I meant right after this.
If you record audio for any purpose, chances are you want it to be heard. You want to attract the largest audience possible who can hear your message. That's where we come in. We're cyberears.com, a revolutionary internet service that will host your audio files and help you promote and track its popularity. Considering hosting a podcast to the world? We have all the automated tools to make the process as simple and easy as it can be. No technical mumbo-jumbo to work out. CyberEars.com does all the work for you. You record it, we take care of the rest. So don't delay. Go to cyberears.com today and register for a free trial account. Upload your audio files and get heard. With cyberears.com, it's your audio on your terms.
Well, Paratopia, please welcome a very special guest, a friend of mine from work. Her name is Briana, and I think I spoke briefly about her either on this show or on the live show, that she has a haunted place, and she originally didn't want to come on the show and talk about it because she was afraid that might attract more attention from it, which fits in nicely with all that we have talked about here. But she's decided to do it anyway. So, Briana, thank you very much for braving the paranormal weathers here and coming on the show.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Now, I want to say that, I don't know you very well, but from what I do know of you, you seem to me to be a smart and sensitive and sweet person. So I can vouch for your character. But another thing about you that fits in with what we talk about here is you seem to have a very anti-structural life. So where should we begin? I guess first, maybe I'll ask you, when did this, I guess, is it just purely a haunting? And if it is, when did this start happening?
I don't know if it's a haunting or, I mean, I don't even know what to call it, but it started maybe 2 years ago. We started noticing things going on in the house. Like, it was small things at first, like doors opening and closing and like shadows and stuff, but then it started getting like worse.
And do you remember what was going on at the time in your life 2 years ago?
2 years ago. It was kind of a bad like period for me. I was going through a lot of issues with like anxiety, depression. I was in and out of the hospital at the time, and that was when we had first noticed that was going on. Like, my family actually thought it was kind of linked somehow. I'm not sure how that would have worked. But.
Well, do they believe in, when they say linked, did they think that there was a paranormal origin for it and it was linked, or did they think something else? Yeah,
they knew that something was up, because they were actually the first ones that started noticing things, but they also noticed that it was my room mostly. Like, my door would open and close. One time, like, they just heard it slam, and, I don't keep my windows open, I don't keep my door open, so, they found it strange. One time in particular, like, my stepdad said that after hearing my door opening and closing, he walked by and, like, for a split second, he saw a man on my bed. And, that kind of freaked him out a little bit. So, they told me what was going on, and it was just a lot of strange things happened. Like, it got really bad at one point. Like, everything started happening at once. But lately, it hasn't been as bad as it was at that time.
And you'd also mentioned a blue light in your closet, right?
Yes.
Now, what is that? Do you know?
No.
But you've taken pictures of this.
I have. I've taken pictures of it. It's, it's not crazy bright, like, to the point that, like, that it bothers me. It's just, I can see it through the cracks in my closet. Like, it's just a blue light. It's noticeable, but it's not, crazy bright or anything.
And so, to what do you attribute the fact that it's sort of simmered down recently? Mm-hmm. Has your life changed at all recently?
It has. I'm definitely more positive about myself and about, my life and everything than I was 2 years ago. I was really confused at the time about a lot of things, but lately I've been, staying positive and just getting things done that I have to get done to make sure that I'm okay and I don't go back to that place that I was 2 years ago.
And how old are you?
21. I'll be 21 in October.
That's interesting. So, do you think then that it is related to you? Do you think it's related to, I don't know, your state of mind?
I don't know, honestly. Like, at the time, I did, but then, I don't know, I realized, it's probably just me, and I just had a lot of negative energy around me, and I figured that, it could have been, but I can't really say for sure, so.
And do you know what did your dad do when he thought there was a man in your bed?
He started praying, because, I come from a very Christian family, so he just started praying, and, because that's
what they do.
Yeah.
So your family's really, now, can we talk about your sexuality, or is that off limits?
Okay. No, that's fine.
Well, I just want to get it out there that, your family is this sort of fundamentalist Christian, and your sexuality, you told me you're, what, I don't even know what to call you, you're sort of accepting of everything. It's not just bisexual, it's any sort of transgender, hermaphrodite, any of that sort of thing is cool by you.
Yeah, the word for it is pansexual. It basically means that I'm open to a relationship with any type of person, and I don't believe in the gender binary, so it's more than just male and female to me, so.
And your parents are cool with this, right?
Absolutely not. Not at all.
Is this why you were depressed and all of that growing up? Or were there other issues there?
It was a lot of things. It was, I always felt different from, my whole family. And, because I would go to church, but I wasn't into it like they were. And it just, the Bible and everything, none of it made sense to me. So I was like, all right, I'm not like my family. And they didn't like that I'm not like them. So I think that had a lot to do with it, too.
So when you say that maybe you don't want to do this show because you don't want to draw attention to it because that might make it, whatever this thing is, come back into your life, then do you think that it has its own sense of self, its own intelligence, or do you mean that if you focus on it, then you're going to create it?
It's its own thing. Like, things will happen once in a while, and it won't be never as bad as before, because, some scary things are happening. I think the worst recently was a couple of days ago. I started meditating to help with my anxiety and stuff. I heard it's, good to stay positive with meditating. So I'm sitting in my bed, and, just something, pushes my arm off of my leg while I'm meditating. And I didn't feel hands. I just something just pushed my hand off, and it broke my concentration. I was like, "What the hell was that?" And that's the worst that's happened lately. And after that, I was just like, I felt like something was watching me. And
have you ever been communicated with by this thing?
Not me. I did. There was one time I had a friend over, and he was in my room, and then he left to use the bathroom, and he goes to open the door, and it kind of just closes on him. So he pushes it open again, and something in my bathroom just kind of growled at him. It sounded like a growl. I don't know if it was actual words, but that's what it sounded like. That was the only time I had ever heard anything like that. My parents have heard voices in the hallway, but that's...
And have they ever talked about anything like this in their lives prior to you?
No. Not really.
What happens when the blue light comes? Does anything specific happen?
No, it's just a blue light that shines from my closet. I don't ever hear anything inside or anything. It's just a light. I don't know what it is, and I don't want to know what it is.
Does it scare you?
I was afraid at first, but now it's just whatever. I see it once in a while, and it's all right, I'm just going to avoid my closet tonight.
Have you ever opened it up while the light was there?
No.
Or knocked on it?
Absolutely not. Oh. No. I leave it.
When you were hospitalized, did you talk about this stuff there?
No. No, basically, when I was there, I was just telling them what they wanted to hear so they can get me out, because I really didn't want to be there. So I didn't talk about much when I was there. What were
you there for?
Depression, really. I had attempted suicide, and so that led me to being hospitalized.
Have you studied up on the paranormal or anything like that? Has this had any sort of effect on you that way, where it's made you want to look into hauntings? What's your interest outside of the fact that it's happening to you?
I did at first. I was buying books. I think one of them is An Idiot's Guide to the Paranormal. Something like that.
Mm-hmm. Hello?
And...
we have a paranormal connection.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. Yeah, this house in Sheepshead Bay, the owner wrote a book about...
See, every time you open your mouth, it doesn't want you to do the interview.
That's probably what it is. You know what's funny? When we first started doing research, because it turns out... Oh, my goodness. Still can't hear me?
No, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. when we first found we realized stuff was going on, we did research on the neighborhood, and it turns out my house, my block and a couple blocks down, these houses were built because I live in a gated community. They were built on over an area where a mental hospital was burned down in the 60s. And we were doing research on that, and every time my mom would go to, learn about the hospital, our computer was shut down. And it wasn't an old computer or anything, it would just shut down. And so we found that really creepy. We were like, oh my God, it doesn't want us to know.
Well, have you contacted anyone to try to get rid of this thing? Have you treated it like a spirit?
My grandmother would come over and pray and throw holy water and holy oil. I don't know what it is that she had, but she would spray it all over the house, and that's about it. I mean, because my family's Christian, they don't believe in, having a medium over, a ghost whisperer or whatever it is. So,
bird whisperer.
Did I say bird or ghost?
No, you said ghost.
You're the bird whisperer. But yeah, that's...
Well, this is interesting. I mean, we always sort of talk about, again, people who have sort of anti-structural lives, or they have moments in their lives that are punctuated by anti-structure, which means, they're moving, they're going through a divorce, they're coming to terms with something that just breaks up their normal daily routine. And when that happens, something paranormal generally tends to occur to that type of person. So it seems as though you sort of fit the anti-structural bill, except that what you're adding to that is that maybe this is at least somehow emanating from you, or you're somehow playing a role in the manifestation of this stuff that is above and beyond the fact that you had an anti-structural moment in your life. It's not just that you became depressed and then this happened. It's it's there because of you in some way.
Yeah.
In other words, it's not as though you just sort of opened up to a broader world that exists around you when you took off your blinders of normalcy, by accident a couple of years ago. It sounds like this thing is actually specific to you.
Yeah. Unfortunately.
Have you ever tried to treat it as an aspect of yourself?
No, I mean, I don't understand a lot of it. I don't know if it's a haunting, if it's, demons, because, I believe in demons, and it could be anything. There's a lot of connections and, things with my father. My father just died when I was a baby, and I know he had a lot of issues with stuff like this. So. Oh,
your father did? Well, Huh. What were his issues with this?
I don't know a lot about it, because I don't know a lot about him, but stories my mom's told me, she's how when she was living with him, stuff like that would happen. And he actually he committed suicide, and my mom told me that when he died, he was listening to Bohemian Rhapsody by Queen, and when I was hospitalized for attempting suicide, my nurse was actually singing that in my room when he was with me, and I thought that was the strangest coincidence. I was I felt okay, maybe I don't know if that was linked to it or whatever. I found it really strange, because the song's about selling your soul to the devil, and so.
And so who was your dad to you? Beyond this, what are you saying there? That he would have sold his soul to the devil?
Yeah, that could have been it. He was struggling with a lot. He was a drug addict, and so I don't know. Like I said, I don't know much about him, so I don't know what his issue was. It was upsetting because I love the song so much. I always thought it's one of the greatest songs written. Rock opera and all that, but yeah, I don't know. I thought it was a very, very strange coincidence.
What about other things in your life? Do you have anything psychic abilities that you could speak of? Have you ever seen a UFO?
I've never seen one, but I believe in them.
What about psychic? Have you experienced?
Oh, no, I've never. I haven't. I know people who tell me, you know, that they know things about people without them telling them whatever. And you know, I believe it. I believe that people have gifts, but I've never myself experienced anything like that.
And what is your racial background?
I am mostly Hispanic. I'm a mix. I'm Puerto Rican and Colombian, Dominican, Black, and Indian. So I have a what?
And I guess, I don't know, maybe I'll just ask you one last question. How has this changed your thinking, or has it changed your thinking? I mean, you weren't particularly religious to begin with, right?
No, absolutely not. I don't know, it just made me feel like there's a lot more out there than we understand and we know. And I don't know, just I feel like it's very real to me. So I know I'm not imagining things because it's not just me.
Do you wish that this wasn't happening, or are you glad because it has opened your mind to the fact that, you know, life isn't the little bubble that we take for granted?
No, I'm glad that, you know, I think it's awesome, actually. I mean, besides, like, you know, the scary things that have happened. But yeah, I mean, it's exciting to me because I like learning, and I want to learn a lot more about it. And I mean, makes my life interesting. I have stories.
That you do.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for sharing them. And if anything else happens, do let me know.
I will.
Stay safe with all of this, I suppose.
Thanks. I'll try.
And thank you for being open and honest with us. Much
You're
appreciated.
welcome. You're welcome.
All right. And I will see you back at the bird whispering shop.
All right. Good night. Bye.
This is Stanton Friedman, and you're listening to Paratopia.
So the Jeff. Crap. I honestly thought he'd return my calls. But no. All right, Paratopia, looks like you're in for a little more me time. That's right. One question I wanted to ask Briana that I forgot to, but I asked her today, was, does she think that because her personality type, obviously being someone who tried to kill herself, is to internalize and sort of probably be passive-aggressive, but definitely be self-immolating, since that's her personality, since she represses and turns it in on herself and doesn't lash out, does she think that that's the reason that, you know, maybe it sort of wafts off her, this paranormal or this unconscious, maybe it's just plain unconscious energy, wafts off her and takes a form of some sort or several forms? And she basically said yes, she does. And I said, like Firestarter or Carrie, and she said, well, not really powers. And I'm like, I don't know, girl. These kind of look like powers to me. I didn't say that. But if I were Whoopi Goldberg in Ghost, I might have. In any event, I didn't know any of this stuff about her, like when this started. When I asked when this started 2 years ago, what was going on in your life, that wasn't a setup question that I knew the answer to. So what do we make of this? I mean, you know, well, what happened 2 years ago? Oh, I tried to kill myself. I was in deep funk depression. I mean, I didn't even go looking for this pattern. It's just right there, right? It's just part of the George Hansenism. So maybe it's time for everyone to just give in to the fact that George Hansen is right. Not always right, but right in this instance. Which reminds me that I spoke to George last week, and I asked him, George, are you a superhero? A lot of people think you're a superhero. And he answered, no, I'm a nerd. And I, as the kids say, lost my shit. All right, next up on my short list of things to talk about, this is something that Jeff and I wanted to talk about last Sunday on Paratopia Live, but our interview with Melissa Reed ran over. And in fact, if you listen to the archive, if you're a subscriber, we have the archive of Paratopia Live for you. and the overage was recorded, so you can listen to it even though it cut off on the live show. It did record the rest of our time with her. In any event, this is what we were going to talk about, and I think I'll just read to you some emails between me and Jeff and Tyler Kochjohn. Emma's in on this thread as well, but I don't think she comes up in a significant way on this topic, so I think I'm just going to read Tyler Kochjohn and Jeff Ritzman's emails without asking them permission. So Emma is saved from that, but obviously I see no reason why they wouldn't give me their permission, and I'm just going to take a liberty here. I ask, Tyler, when a UFO or a pukwudgie seemingly stops and starts a car, we tend to say they're doing it by producing an electromagnetic effect. Do you think that's necessarily true? And if it is true, would such a strong quote-unquote blast also produce an altered state of consciousness in the brains of the people in the vehicle? Do you know enough about physics to say that there could be an alternative explanation, which is that whatever is being witnessed is in, say, another dimension, and when the moving wormhole gets too close, time as we perceive it stops as we enter the outer edges of their bubble? This goes for animals and insects too, which are always reported, I can't think of a report where this isn't true, always reported to go dead silent when an event happens and pick up when it's over. Could that all indicate that at a point when timelines collide, one gets canceled out, or is that too sci-fi? And Tyler answers, we see the car stopping in the UFO/pukwudgie sighting correlation, and that is an observation. Invoking an electromagnetic mechanism for the car stalling is a logical attempt to explain what we see because we know that it is possible. Is the electromagnetic effect necessarily what transpired to stop that car? Not at all. It is only our attempt to make sense of an experience, and our idea may or may not be true. We can say that an explanation is or is not consistent with the known facts and observable aftermath of an event like this, but proof of actual mechanism is much tougher. Imagine you saw a building on fire. How did it happen? We have enough experience to come up with several ways pretty easily. How did it really happen? And that's where you need more information. The electromagnetic pulse idea is good in that it gives a theoretically plausible explanation for one aspect of what was observed. One problem is that things like UFOs and pukwudgies fall so far out of the realm of ordinary experience, it becomes expedient to simply dismiss them. The way to get after this to a degree is to attempt to establish the working conditions of the car and see if you can rule in/out other explanations. Was it okay beforehand, or did they have it in the shop because it was stalling? Was the battery cable loose? I have seen vehicles shut down dead while off-roading in Arizona when the battery cable lost contact. Again, you can't prove what happened exactly, but you can build a chain of evidence. If it was Kelly telling me that the car was fine, I would tend to give her story great weight. And here he's talking about what we're both talking about, which is Kelly Johnson, who was on our, that episode a couple episodes back talking about the pukwudgie that stopped her car. Anyway, he goes on, here is where the core project comes in big. Just how often will one find such correlations? Yes, I remember Close Encounters of the Third Kind, but how often for pukwudgie events? Sometimes in science you just have to observe nature, note patterns, and depart from there. The work of Michael Persinger suggests to me that non-ionizing radiation of sufficient intensity and focus can impact neural function. Maybe the pukwudgie is like an electric eel or catfish. If I recall correctly, those critters can stun their prey. I think dolphins do the same with sound, so maybe you have some rational analog examples of radiation effects exerted by one living organism to use against another. Is that real? Good question, but at least you're still striving for reality. You can also do such things with intent to mislead or evade. Say you want to, quote-unquote, explain how a pukwudgie could stall a car without having a physical device in hand. The key is how you qualify your interpretations. The physics area, timelines, wormholes, etc., I am not confident in at all, but I sure was impressed by how Kelly explained some things. But you're bumping into something here that is important. To do UFO/paranormal work, you need a range of expertise, physics, biology, psychology, and you might need to consult a range of people as you're already doing. The animal noise connection is intriguing. Again, I think I'm correct that a gentleman from California noted that he could discern when earthquakes were imminent by watching the classified ads in the local newspaper. When the number of lost dogs and cats notices spiked, get ready for the quake. I think he even tried to market a service that would inform you of such activities via email. Or maybe that was a money-making scheme hatched by Kim Cooper and me over lunch one day. I have heard story after story of pets acting strangely before a quake, but now you have a way to test this. Remember the earthquake a few weeks ago? Go back to Craigslist or local papers and check out the lost pet ads a few days before. Any spike evident? Man, the internet is cool. So, if the observations are consistent with dogs sensing earthquakes in advance, what is the mechanism? Maybe they hear things we can't? ? We know that this is a true statement. Think dog whistles. But does it explain this observation? That's where you start establishing a chain evidence. One dog went nuts, but old Blue, deaf as a stone for years, never even woke up. You get the idea. You just start peeling the onion, as you and Jeff said. Okay, as I'm reading along here, I gotta confess, I'm reading the emails again, and Emma Woods does say some things that I could use, but I cannot for the life of me bring myself to the maturity level that is required to read her without an accent. And when I start reading in an accent, I immediately start going to this character right here, right? So, once again, Emma, even though you did say some things that apply, I'm just not mature enough to read them. So with that in mind, I respond, I don't know if this is another strike against the electromagnetic effect hypothesis, prevalent in UFO shuts down car, starts it up stories. But wouldn't they have to adjust with our technology? We went from ye old car engines to computerized engines. Wouldn't they have to recalibrate their beam accordingly, at least to make sure they don't just fry the computer engine? Where are those accounts of computerized engines stalling and never starting again, when the aliens had to do trial and error? Having written that, I'm reminded of the account in Wonders in the Sky of a horse and buggy stopping/starting, so never mind. And Tyler responds, one would think that careful calibration would be called for if you wanted the thing to regain functionality. And modern solid-state electronic devices are pretty sensitive. And then he writes, I think I recall the same claim regarding the Hills cars and something or other about spots, but what I can't figure out is how one could detect a magnetized area in a steel car body which would in and of itself be magnetic. Maybe this is some nifty-sounding stuff that was added and subsequently repeated without it ever being verified. Step one would be to ascertain if that was part of the original telling of the incident and how it was noted. And then Ritzman chimes in, one thing to think about is not... Sorry, that's mean. One thing to think about is not the phenomenon, whatever it may be. Shutting down the car. Think reverse. The car has an electrical overload, whether that be the distributor, alternator, coil, or a timing belt issue caused by internal issues or outside geological interference. Any way you cut it, there can be a pretty good surge of electricity that can surge throughout a metal-tight surrounding structure. Fear cage. That being the case, is the car malfunction the producer of the altered state? Don't forget, in the instance of Kelly, she said she felt a sense of willies right before the car shut off. The car shutting down always comes first, then the sighting of whatever. This doesn't negate the reality of what was seen or why, it's only the mechanism of the altered state. And Tyler says, Jeff, this is good. And then there's a bit more. How have you felt when the car died in the middle of nowhere? Did you get a surge of emotion? Auto-matic, altered state. Okay, ignore the pun. But seriously, mull over the idea that the person is experiencing a cascade of physiological changes that primes them for more. And so there you go, Paratopia. Now you've got a sense of just how nerdly we get in our off time. We just continuously talk about this crap. Well, since I don't have really anything to discuss tonight, and since I'm reading, let me read you this other little page here I just found in a notebook full of stuff. I don't think I used this in my book, but it's kind of interesting. Maybe it'll do something for you. I don't know. It says, what is the meaning of life? And if I answer that, if I tell you the meaning of life, does that have any meaning for you? You hear this question and you think, gee, meaning is what we make of it. Whatever I want the meaning of life to be, it is. Everything is subjective. From there, some of you create hocus-pocus attitudes around the self, which you now think is divine. You think you can will things into existence if you concentrate hard enough and then let go. But the self is not divine, and so if you believe that, and achieve an ability, To will your wants into existence, your cute parlor trick reinforces the lie you live. How different is this from your descriptions of a devil? The fallen one who believes himself God, creating a self-serving, greed-based reality that ultimately is anti-life. That is you. That is your meaning. No matter the text, that's the subtext. Is there real meaning beyond the delusion? How will you find out? Certainly it's a question my answer can't answer. No answer can. Asking it does. I don't know. Does that do anything for you? No? Good. I also have here my favorite Teokas and Ghost Horse quote talking about the aliens. He says, they present a mystery. And I say, what is mystery to you? And he says, jokes. There's something so perfect about that. Paratopia. Jeremy Vaeni here. As you can tell, I'm floundering doing this show, and so I've decided to sneak up on Emma Woods and call her.
I'm just going to grab a drink of water, and I'll be back in 2 seconds.
Okay. And she's agreed. She's got her inhaler. She's going for a glass of water. We're going to catch up with Emma Woods. Can't say this one isn't full of surprises, at least, right? I mean, right? Surprises for you and for me.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi. I'm glad that you did it on the spur of the moment, because the nerves would have been horrendous.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, okay.
Well, thank you for agreeing to this.
Oh, you're welcome. Surprise.
Well, it's funny, because in the beginning of this show, I was talking about Peter Robbins on that other show.
Yeah.
You heard his little bit.
I did.
What do you make of it? Do you think it's the last words of a dying breed, or what?
Right. Sorry, are you talking about the Banal of America show or the Paracast?
No, the Paracast.
The Paracast.
Well, either one. I mean, I think both of them, really, you know.
Yeah. Well, he certainly toned down what he was saying about Carol and me on the Paracast and sort of made it more vague, but obviously implying us, which was interesting. But I think that probably he, and maybe the people around him, but definitely he, I think, wants to keep the sort of legacy of Bud alive. And I think that he hasn't looked at all at David's work, so he's sort of, wanting to keep David's work alive as well, and just sort of believing in it without really thinking too much about it. And I think that probably he's, I suspect, I don't know, but I suspect that they're going to try and sort of resurrect David's work and keep Bud's work alive.
Did I get this right? I mean, it sounded like Peter Robbins was saying he's sort of going to be inserting himself more into the abduction scene now. Was that the sense you got of it?
Yeah, I had a sense that the Intruders Foundation want to keep going. They want to keep going, and they're sort of thinking, planning directions and things like that. And yeah, I had a sense that they definitely want to keep pushing it.
It's just so weird. I saw a clip of, I think, what is his name, Clifford Clift or some stupid name like that, but the head of MUFON on the Daily Show with Jon Stewart, where I think there is, I scrutinized that little skit they did, and they, I think, edited him to look as though he was talking about something that he wasn't once. And the rest of it was not edited that way. It was just purely what he was actually saying. And it was so outlandish that it just stood out on its own. And I just, between the old farts at MUFON and the Intruders Foundation now, this is a done deal, this ufology, in its current state, I think.
I thought it was so, it was almost, kind of amusing when Chris O'Brien was sort of like saying to Peter Robbins, well, where do you think we should go? And Peter Robbins was saying, well, maybe we should look at sort of scientific protocols and ethics. And I'm not joking, and it was like at this very late stage, he's sort of putting that forward and assuring him that it's not a joke. It's like, what does that say about the research of Bud and David all these decades? It's just,
yeah. Well, I mean, even getting back to the MUFON guy, There was, I don't remember what he calls, like an away team or a star people, ambassadors. Right. I don't know, something, star something, but it's just, this is what he calls the investigators, and that's what they sort of edited to make it sound as though he was talking about them in a different context, as if they were a meet and greet team for aliens, but that's not what he was saying. But the very fact that you would even call your researchers something that, just cheesy and sci-fi is like, and then wonder why you're not getting taken seriously. And then, inevitably, I'm sure, complain that once again, the media has made us to look like idiots. It's like, well, no, you're actually doing this. I don't know.
Yeah. God, it is. It's quite predetermined, isn't it? This is the aliens. And,
yeah. By the way, I should warn you and Paratopia that I am moving next week, and so I have a roommate, the gal who's going to be taking my place, and she just walked in drunk. So I don't know how quiet I'm going to be able to keep her for the duration of this, but we'll see what we can do. Oh, she just said from the bathroom, "Don't tell people I'm drunk." So, with that in mind, no. What's become of you as of late? Now that you're no longer dealing with Jacobs, what's your life like?
I'm trying to sort of get back to some kind of normality. Last year was sort of baptism of fire, really, and it was more stressful than I realised at the time. And sort of as I sort of pulled away at the end, I felt that I'd done everything that I could and started to sort of close down my Facebook page and stuff. I started to realise just how stressful it was. So I've been taking some time out, and I'm kind of going back. I'm sort of now at the point where I'm sort of having to deal with the real issues like the hypnotic memories and what happened with David and stuff like that. So I've got quite a bit of like thinking and processing and sort of stuff to do. So I'm just taking things quite quietly in my life and that.
Have you seen any hybrids or anything like that since?
Not that I know of. No, I still have experiences, but yeah.
Like
I'm still
what?
Really interested in it.
What sort of experiences do you still have?
I still get body marks. I still have periods of missing time sometimes. Unexplained noises, flashes of light, just the sort of usual kind of things, ongoing things.
Flashes of light with your eyes open or closed?
Open, like in my room or something in my flat. There'll be I get these sort of like flashes of white light sometimes and stuff like that. So yeah, just.
Anything? Is it? So it's not traffic.
No, definitely not. No.
Is it anything coordinated? Is there anything you can look at and go, okay, I know when this is going to happen, or I know what this means?
No, but with the flashes of white light, they quite often, there's a second one about 10 minutes after the first one, but that's the only sort of thing that I can sort of.
And then does something happen next, or that's just it, just flashes of light?
Not that I'm aware of, no. I mean, yeah. I still have the kind of mindset that I had when I was working with David, when David would sort of tell me what it all meant, and I did hypnosis and things like that. So I have all these sort of hypnotic memories. So my brain is still thinking it's a precursor to aliens and hybrids arriving, and that's kind of like, oh yeah, no, it's not that. But not conscious memory of anything else happening.
Well, that seems to be a trade up from hybrids. I would take it if I were you.
Yeah. But I'm really, really fascinated about the Project Core that you are setting up. I just think that's the best news I've heard for a long time.
It'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see how many people participate. I submitted my 30 potential questions. We're going to, I guess the four of us are going to, give all of our questions, pool them, and then take the top 25 of all of them. So we're only supposed to do 10 or 15 each, but overachiever that I am, I went for 30. So
oh, wow.
They seem to like them, but we'll see. I hope the date doesn't get pushed back because Jeff, Jeff Ritzman, he's had a computer meltdown at work and all kinds of weird stuff going on that requires his attention. But I don't think so. I think we're still slated for October 1st to get this thing out there.
Oh, wow. That'd be fantastic. Yeah. Oh, wow. God, it's so different from Bud. I think Bud's questionnaire was like about 600 or 700 questions from memory.
Yeah, we don't need that. Does the word trodent mean anything to you?
Yeah.
No, thanks.
It kind of sticks out like a small bit.
Well, it's interesting, too, that a listener sent me a link to someone else's, I guess, Project Mosaic or something like that.
Yeah.
Someone else's version of this that was clearly they have an intention, which is to prove extraterrestrials are here doing X. And it's like, you're already starting off with a conclusion. Yeah. You know, it's like you don't even know it. You know, I mean, that's how sort of like ingrained this extraterrestrial thing is in us.
Yeah. Are you guys going to be looking at the whole government? You know, the sort of MILAB, I'm not sure how you pronounce it, that side of that sort of theory about it. I think that Whitley Strieber and Kim Carlsberg and Leah Haley and that, they all seem to think that is a factor in it. I mean, what is your take on it? And is that something that you're going to be looking at? Or?
If people submit that stuff to us, we'll everything will be included. So if it all depends on who submits, you know. Yeah. Yeah. My take on it is, I don't know. My take on it is, it doesn't make sense to me that. I mean, I don't. First of all, I mean, Leah Haley. I own a book I've read, and I can't for the life of me remember what her story is. No offense, Leah Haley. Right. I think Strieber thinks some things are from column A and some things are from column B. And Kim Carlsberg, and I know you're friends with her, and you may disagree, but I don't think she's had anything. I think that she was raped, and I think that she has authority issues, and I think that comes out in her dreams, and she doesn't know that they're dreams. So I don't consider them all of equal weight, and I don't consider a lot of that MILAB stuff that sounds dreamish. I mean, I'll just give you for instance, when Kim Carlsberg was on the show, and she said, she's in this sort of office setting in a military base, and then a swivel chair turns around and it's a gray alien. I mean, this is all sort of dream imagery. This didn't happen, as far as I'm concerned. But as far as Project Core is concerned, it doesn't matter what I think, I mean, that's the beauty of the project, is like my personal prejudices aren't going to be recognized here.
That's ideal, isn't it? That's absolutely ideal.
Yeah. So, Kim, feel free to submit your story, regardless of what I think. But what do you think? I mean, do you think that, I mean, when just even thinking about your own thing, you've got flashes of light, you've got like tidbits of things here and there. Does it add up to you to a government thing? And if it does, then what does that mean? Because you're not in America, and all of that MILAB stuff is American. Yeah,
that's something I've been thinking about lately. I think my initial reaction for a long time was, not very likely. I don't think it explains the phenomenon, because it's been around for ages. I do think that there is a kind of a military theme in it, but I don't know that necessarily means it's the government. Like, my dad actually had some memories of walking down a passage and being interrogated by a soldier and things like that, and he's been an experiencer. Well, he was an experiencer all his life, and he wondered whether he'd had some sort of military thing. And I had some unexplained memories that have a slight military theme, but I don't think that necessarily means that it's the government. I think it could be part of the phenomenon that just kind of is picking up on something in your subconscious or something like that. And I wonder whether that could be what's happened with like Kim's memories, that might actually be an experience that is, picking up something in her
well, that's possible too. Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I was reading, like just tidbits of things that I've written and not done anything with, and one of them was about that at the beginning of the show. I mean, and one of them was that maybe missing time. Maybe the reason people remember the beginning and the ending, but not the middle, is because the middle doesn't take place in time, in space time. It takes place in some other timeline or whatever, and so you consciously can't get at it. And so what does that mean? I mean, if it's buried, then is it rolling around with your other associations and your other unconscious material and then coming up, as sort of dreamlike nonsense? Yeah.
But I think for people in America, and possibly in England, maybe, I think it's possible that the government could be doing some kind of covert surveillance on experiences just out of interest. I can imagine if I was, in a high-up position in one of those organisations, I'd probably be interested in, if I didn't have any morals, I'd probably do some surveillance or something. But I don't know whether that would happen, is happening, or I don't really know what to think about it.
Yeah, well, I think surveillance is one thing, but then it's another thing to think that people are somehow sneaking into, for instance, my New York apartment and stealing me away, with roommates, with a city that never sleeps, it just doesn't...
The technology, I think that's probably a bit unlikely. Well, I think that at a time, it wouldn't surprise me that there are some real factors to do with time and the phenomenon. And I kind of noticed that myself when I was doing in 2004, I did this really detailed project on my experiences, and I was videoing myself at night with a video camera, and I noticed that there were some odd things to do with time then, and that made me think, I wonder whether time is a bit of a factor in the phenomenon. So it'll be interesting to see what comes out of the stuff that you get back from people.
Well, outside of, looking at, should I sue David Jacobs, should I not, and all that, you were doing research on yourself. Have you come up with anything? What have you been doing about researching yourself lately?
My research got completely smashed, unfortunately. I've got this huge pile of data, which I collected, but I just was broken down by my hypnosis with David, so I was never able to finish even collating it, let alone publishing it. And then I've had to deal with the whole thing of, the public thing last year and so on, which took all my time and energy. So I've just been left with this sort of 10 years worth of data just sitting there in my filing cabinets. And I can see that there's really interesting stuff in it. And maybe one day, I'll get round to doing it. But my plan of doing the research project just kind of went up in flames, really. So, no, it hasn't really gone anywhere. But I feel like I have learnt a lot from it, just from the process of doing it.
Have you been approached to join anything like a MUFON or a UFO organization?
No. I mean, I wrote to MUFON, last year about my work with David, but most of them just ignore me. A few of them have, communicated with me, but no, I haven't. No.
And have you had any communication with Elizabeth since then?
I have exchanged emails with her, and I also sent her an audio. I just felt like talking to her one day, and I didn't want to write an email because it's quite impersonal. I really wanted to communicate with her, so I actually just spoke into a microphone and just sent it to her. And I sort of feel like I've understood her a lot better now than I did before, because I used to think that she was just a hoaxer, and I was quite angry about the whole thing that happened. And now I see her very much as somebody who's actually probably been really, really badly hurt by her work with David. But because of the way that the hurt affected her, I think she's in a position where she can't really reach out to anybody for help, and I think she's probably quite lonely. So I feel a lot more compassion for her now. I feel I understand her position a lot better.
Have you learned anything, or what have you learned from just, the whole year? The onslaught of morons and, people you've never heard of trying to sort of infiltrate your personal space to get information, to write silly articles and all those sorts of things. Have you learned anything about any of this? Has it made you more weary of people, or do you lose your faith in people?
It certainly taught me about how to fight back, because I'm the type of person that I don't like conflict, and I always look for the happy solution, and that's what I tried to do with David. I sort of, really, really tried, and I always sort of want everything to turn out nicely all the time. And then I hit this place where it just wasn't working, and if I didn't fight back, I was going to be completely buried and trashed, to cover up for something really awful. And I sort of learnt that at some point you have to make a decision as to whether you're going to do that or whether to fight back, and I've sort of learnt what that entails. So that's been a huge, personal growth of a sort, I suppose. And I've learnt a lot about how people don't look at things if they have, personal friendships and personal interests. And people can be quite ruthless and look away from quite bad abuse if they, if it makes them feel uncomfortable. So that's been quite an eye-opener. So I've learnt a lot about people.
Did you expect that? I mean, you had that happening to you when the doors shutting on you when you were originally trying to talk about this, and then, when we got involved, it became more, obviously more public, and then did you expect that to change the doors shutting on you? Did it change those doors shutting on you?
Oh, yeah, totally. I mean, I put my website up in October 2007, and I was completely treated as a pariah up until early 2010. And it really was just when Kim made it public on her blog, and she's quite a fighter, and she wrote hundreds of emails, and she sent thousands of Facebook messages about it. And then when you and Jeff took it up, and that was when it really became public, and the change almost overnight was amazing. All of a sudden, the doors weren't shut on me anymore. So it was quite incredible.
Yeah, I got to say, I mean, whether I think Kim is an experiencer or not, I mean, that's really irrelevant. What she did with you and getting you out there was fantastic.
Yeah.
I mean, I always give her kudos for that.
Yeah.
So you feel, I don't know, what? Do you feel like he's trying to slime his way back, and do you think he can be successful? Do you think the tide has turned finally, or what?
I think I have been given some information privately from various sources about what he's doing. I can't say anything more than that because I don't want, I want to protect the people who talk to me. But I have some idea of what he's doing.
Can we lie and say it was Jerome Clark just to get him in trouble?
Unfortunately, no.
Has Jerome Clark been talking to you again about David's plans? Come on.
No.
Oh, damn it.
No, he's very much David's friend, I think. But, so no, he's definitely not finished with me by a long shot. He's got plans in the works for me. And so I had sort of thought that I would sort of slowly fade away out of the field, because that's kind of what I really wanted to do. But I've kind of realized that I actually need to stay around, because I think I'm going to be facing a big hit at some point in the future from David. So, no, he's definitely not finished with me.
Like a PR hit, or do you think he's looking to the law for I don't know what? That would be silly.
Oh, I don't know. I don't think he's going to go to the law, because he wouldn't have a leg to stand on. I think he'd be terrified of the law, to be honest. I suspect that he's probably writing something. I don't know whether he'll write a book and self-publish it, or whether he's what he's doing, but I think he's preparing something to do an absolute hatchet job on me.
But what would he say? Would he say, like, okay, this woman is crazy. Here are all the people who signed off on this thing saying she's crazy. Now let's get back to the sane world of instant messenger aliens.
I think he's very much a character, in my opinion. He's very much a character who kind of weaves his way around what he thinks will work in the moment. Like, sometimes he'll say, he was terrified of the hybrids and so on and so forth. But then I get feedback from people where he actually denies it. And he's sort of denied it by implication in his statement on his website, where there's no mention of the instant messaging or anything like that. So he kind of denies all or part, or admits, or it's sort of all over the place, and you have to sort of follow where he's going. So I suspect if he thinks anything will be embarrassing to him, he'll he'll just try and squash it. But the main thing he's going to really push is that it's all lies, it's all false, and that some kind of mentally ill, deranged person who shouldn't be listened to.
Yes, clearly. Well, what have you learned about you in this past year, besides, to fight back?
I think I've learnt how much the hypnosis has affected me, because I only finished listening to all the hypnosis tapes in early 2010, and I didn't even know about the chastity belts thing until after it was all public, and so a lot of that stuff's been sort of sinking in, and I've been sort of joining the dots and realizing a lot of things, why I feel certain ways and do certain things and so on, and I'm really realizing how the hypnosis has really affected me. So it's been an interesting time.
It's interesting to me to go back and read like the beginning of, I think it's The Threat, where he really, and maybe he does it in his other books too, I don't know, but I remember The Threat in the beginning, he really outlines all of the cautions necessary in doing hypnotic work. Yeah. And I don't remember Bud or John Mack. I mean, they talk about it in their books, but I don't remember them being that lengthy.
You're right. You're right. They don't.
And it just reminds, it's like the typical, this is what I am. It's like you look back now and you go, oh, I get it. He's compensating because, he's hiding because he's the opposite of that. Yeah.
Because I think Carol said that during the hypnosis that Bud was doing, in the actual sessions, he doesn't bleed. She said that, the leading happens beforehand, which I can well believe, but in the actual hypnosis, he doesn't bleed, whereas David leads he leads you by the nose. It's quite extraordinary.
Yeah, he tells you what he had for lunch that day. He, offers you a chastity belt.
Tells you what's happening, what's going to happen. It's bizarre. And, just to hear the contrast of what he says he does, it's to me, it's just deliberate. Like I know that Carol thinks that Bud really believed what he said he believed, but in my opinion, David doesn't believe a word of it. I think it's just, in my opinion, he's just a fraud. I don't think he's ever believed it.
Now, did your opinion change on that?
It's something that I came to just quite recently. Like I went through this long, long process, and first I thought that he was, the expert and, on top of everything, and then I started to realize there was something wrong, but I thought it was just because he was stressed. And then I thought maybe he was in the early stages of dementia, and I was trying to cut him slack and things like that. And then I thought, he's stressed and he's been taken in by a hoaxer, and I felt sorry for him. And then I sort of thought, he's gone off the edge and, too many years in the field, and, and I just felt sorry for him all the time. And then eventually certain things that didn't add up just started to dawn on me, and I just started to think, oh my God, he actually knows, and he's always known that Elizabeth it wasn't true. And now I just think, having listened to the hypnosis and hearing what he does in the hypnosis, he's just overtly leading, and he has to be aware of what he's doing because he's not a fool. And I just think that he was getting fodder for his book, and for his sort of presence in the field. And I don't know why he did it.
Well, if all that's true, then wouldn't his, calling you and writing to you and talking about being on the run and all that sort of stuff, you think that was all acting?
I think that was something that I don't know why he did it, but I think that he was doing something with Elizabeth and me, and I don't know whether it's because he got some kind of psychological satisfaction from it, or whether...
I think I have the answer to that.
Yeah, could be.
The lambs are screaming, aren't they, Clarice? Sorry.
Yeah, oh God. So I don't know, but I just think it was just all... I'll never ever know why he put the MPD suggestions in my mind, and I'm pretty sure he did it to Elizabeth as well. And I can't get my head around that. I don't know why on earth anyone would do that. So that's still a really big unanswered question that I have. But
well, maybe he'll come on the show. Answer these questions. Wait, no, nobody does that. All right. Well, is there anything else? Thank you for rescuing my show in the second half of Paratopia. Is there anything else that you want to say, or that we missed maybe the last time?
No, just again to really, really thank you and Jeff. I mean, you just completely changed my life. And I'm just, really, really grateful. And I just think, what you've done is fantastic. And not just for me, but, for experiences. And I'm just really looking forward to what you do with Project Core. I think it's going to be phenomenal. And,
Well, it's weird to hear you say that, because every time I hear these other podcasters go on shows, they bash us and they say that we're taking advantage of you.
Oh, that's just bizarre.
Any truth to the rumor that we're taking advantage of you?
No, not at all.
Oh.
I could go on about Gene Steinberg, but I won't. But
oh, no.
Yeah. God. Yeah. I just think that you and Jeff are just really ethical people, and I think that you've both got real guts, and I think you have to have guts to be really ethical, and I think that you and Jeff really showed that you do. You were able to take the flak, and work out the issues, and I'm just really, really grateful.
Cool. Well, wonderful. Onward and upward, and I can't wait to check back in with you when sort of the smoke is cleared, if that's even possible, and see where you are with all this stuff.
Yeah, and good luck with your move, eh?
Thank you.
I think it's great.
Thank you kindly. All right. Well, I'm going to go and actually probably go to bed at this point.
Okay. Well, have a good night.
All right. Sweet dreams. Thank you.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Listening back to this and reflecting on the Me Lab thing, it's not so strange that we haven't really covered the topic on the show, because, the evolution of our thought on this is that it's less nuts and bolts and more something else. And I suppose fitting in with that would be what Emma said, which is maybe the mind or the phenomena takes something familiar and masks the phenomena with it. And maybe that's what's going on. Like I said, I don't believe that's what's going on with Kim Carlsberg, and I don't mean to pick on her, and I'm not picking on her simply because, we had it out on the forum over her treatment on the episode. I actually believe what I'm telling you about her, but that doesn't mean that there aren't other people having strange military experiences. I don't think they go beyond surveillance, if that, and I don't see a reason for surveillance anymore at this point. I think probably closer to the truth is that there's a reason that the Me Lab stuff is a primarily American phenomenon, which is that we have this preoccupation with the military and with war. We have, I would say, a bloodlust. We certainly have a thing where we have to always say, support the troops, authority on the one hand while screaming freedom on the other. And I think that sort of probably creates a neurotic break in some sense, and maybe that neurotic break gets reflected in this material. I don't know. But I think that's a more realistic path to look at. That said, I did used to think, at least at some point, that maybe my wires were tapped or whatever. But mainly, I thought that because I remember my dad saying that he was, politically active when he was younger in a way that he thought the FBI might be tapping his wires. And actually, given some of the stories that just about the people that he has told me about, that he's met and that my mother has met, that makes sense. I mean, they met with, political dissidents in Ireland and things like that, like real rebels, as part of an effort to understand what's going on over there, or what was going on over there at the time. So I can see that, and so maybe some of that fear rubbed off on me early on, but I guess this is where I'm grateful that I came to terms with my situation earlier in life than later, because I got to go through the stages of, wondering, well, gee, was it because of this? Was it because of that? is there a military surveillance program? Are there really aliens here? Blah, blah, blah. All of that stuff. Could it be angels? So that's, I guess, just sort of my little follow-up on the MELAB thing. Interestingly, I just received an email from Dr. Coke John that ties this episode up nicely. And since we started the post-Briana section with emails from Tyler, how apropos this little synchronicity. Let's tie this bad boy up and give it an early good night. Tyler writes, Jeremy, the last email exchange with Emma got me thinking about all that has changed because of her. Emma's journey has turned out to be a remarkable story on its own. As you and Jeff bring Project Core online, perhaps you will consider a blog piece for UFO Mag? ? That not only describes what the effort will set forth to do, but also sets the stage by explaining explicitly what Emma exposed beyond Dr. Jacobs' misdeeds. What has happened here is unparalleled. A research subject has not only shone a light on some problems, she has ended up sparking a long overdue introspection that should have been part and parcel of a healthy research process. Ordinarily, it would be the investigators and leaders in the field who would be the instigators of such things. This time it took true outsiders to recognize the ossified pathology and devise a way to commence moving forward. Let me tell you, it is a rare day when the subject reverses roles with the investigator, let alone puts an entire field under the microscope. For examples, I can think of nothing quite like this, but Chris Nowinski comes to mind. He was a collegiate athlete and pro wrestler who experienced, probably, traumatic brain injury, and now runs a group seeking to do research and publicize the problem. He has really set things in motion. Another would be the fact that Lyme disease was recognized not because the scientists recognized the problem and were working on it, but because a mom in Connecticut called the public health office and asked what they were doing about all the kids with juvenile arthritis in the area. Answer: what? When the leadership doesn't really lead or even grasp the basic problems, it's up to the rank and file to take over. The Project Core story itself is an interesting example of exactly that. Combined with an exposition of its genesis, it could be an explosive story. It is one heck of a story, with an ending still in progress. Alright, Paratopia, that's it for me. It's about 3 a.m, and you know what that means. The witching hour is upon us. I have more packing to do, so I'm calling this one early, but we will be on Sunday night for Paratopia Live at 10 p.m., and next week I may or may not be on the show. If we do it early enough in the week, I will. If not, I will be moving out. But tomorrow, the packing continues. I hope this wasn't a complete train wreck. I don't think it was, because at least the 2 interviews were interesting, right? Maybe I dropped the ball, but they didn't. Don't blame them. Blame this guy. All right, sweet dreams. Briana and Emma, thank you so much. Tyler, thank you. Jeff, hope to see you soon. Bye-bye. Good night, Krista. Good night. Sweet dreams.